The Department of Homeland Security says its long-promised ICE immigration operation in Chicago, dubbed Operation Midway Blitz, is now underway. And what they're calling the worst of the worst in Chicago is their target. But according to the Washington Post, local officials and immigrant advocates said federal immigration officers began making arrests in Chicago on Sunday and had taken at least 5 people into custody, including a well-known flower vendor and people waiting at a bus stop and on a sidewalk. Joining us now is the Illinois Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton. Thanks for being here. Do you have a good sense of what's happening in Chicago, the scope of Operation Midway Blitz so far?
We don't have a lot of information. I mean, first of all, we do know the name of this sick reality show, the Midway Blitz. And we have not had real coordination from this administration at all. In fact, we haven't had any official communication from the White House, the Trump administration. They're not working with us, and it's by design. They don't want to work with us because this is not an action that is focused on public safety. You just reported that they said that they were going after the worst of the worst. And then what we found out is that some of the actions from this weekend were a flower vendor or people at a bus stop. They are going after hardworking people who have been our neighbors for years, if not decades. This is not about public safety. This is about the Trump administration wanting to be the center of attention and to really cause chaos in our cities to distract from his failures.
Have you gotten any indication at all that any of these arrests might be of someone who the Trump administration would consider to be the worst of the worst?
Well, I think the operations are just getting underway, so we don't have a lot of information. But what I can say is that entire communities are experiencing the fear of these threats. I can say that there are people who are scared to take their children to school. And I can say that I've talked to business owners who know that that business is down because people are afraid, that we have big celebrations coming up to celebrate Mexican Independence Day, for example. And there are people who are changing their plans because of what's happening. So this is not about public safety, and this is not about going after the quote unquote worst of the worst. This is a power grab by the Trump administration. He wants to not only instill fear through these sort of intensified immigration efforts, but that's just the first step in this authoritarian plan, because what would come next is that knowing that people would protest and then bringing in and saying, well, now I have to send in the federalized troops so that people will get used to seeing the military on American soil. And we've made it clear here in Illinois that we will never find comfort in that. We don't need that. We don't want it. And that we will stand up and make our voices heard, and we will do so peacefully but loudly.
We did speak, some of our folks from NBC News, with organizers and activists at a Faith Over Fear rally in downtown Chicago just yesterday. And here's what they told us about the ICE operations.
Yesterday, I got a dozen calls. Should I come to church today? Should I go to work tomorrow? I had students texting me, worried, hey, is there an online option for CPS that I can do?
What is ICE going to do here? They're not going to do anything for us. They're not going to do anything for anybody here. They're just here just to interrupt people's lives.
Interrupt people's lives. I wonder what else you're hearing. What are the concerns from the everyday residents?
Well, I think everyday residents are concerned about what this process actually looks like. I mean, first of all, you say that this is an operation that is focused on public safety. That's what the administration has said, but there's no coordination with our administration. There's no information about what they are doing, where they are doing it. They're not working in collaboration with us here in Illinois, and they're not working with the governor and our administration to make sure that we know exactly what the plans are. But again, I think people are also very clear, like you just heard, that it is starting with that fear. We know that people are going to raise their voices, and the biggest concern is that then it will require, at least from Trump's standpoint, that now I have to come in and swoop down and clean up Illinois, clean up the city of Chicago. There is no emergency here. There's no need for this ultimate goal of sending federalized troops. And in so many ways, it is the cruelty that is the point. wanting people to be scared, wanting people to be worried about their children.
Say free! You say BC! Free! 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 Free!
Major protests continue against Donald Trump. We've seen more sustained protests against the first year here of this term than most modern presidents. And yet, at the same time, some of the things that Donald Trump is doing and seizing powers for are still getting backed up by the Supreme Court, which has so many Republican members. The rulings that we're seeing are against this backlash. Massive crowds in D.C., one church ringing its bells in solidarity. Democrats staging a sit-in, meanwhile, in Missouri at the Capitol. At the U.S. Open, Donald Trump attended, the first president to do so in over 20 years, and there was clearly a mixed reaction that included audible boos. That's just one indicator from sports. Meanwhile, on the streets of Chicago, we saw signs against ICE and Trump's crackdown. An aerial view here of the protests about Trump sending in more federal troops. One sign said Trump must go now. You could see that hovering in the crowd. The Democratic governor speaking out.
It's, I believe, a nefarious plan. It's one that's been repeated over and over again by, well, tyrannical dictatorships across history, where you try to incite local population into some mayhem by sending in police or other disruptors, and then claim that there's too much mayhem on the ground, and therefore there must be troops that are sent in.
The Democrat there speaking to Jen Psaki and explaining his view of why this is nefarious. Now, there is legitimate ways to enforce immigration laws. Many countries do that. But whether this is an effort at a kind of scare tactics with ICE agents emboldened will continue under the Supreme Court, which has gone out of its way to help Trump even as he tests new powers. Just today, the Supreme Court said ICE can actually continue roving raids that had been challenged and paused.
Jamal Khashoggi. So not long after that really disturbing reporting about Pegasus came out, the Biden administration put the company that made Pegasus, an Israeli spyware company, it put that Israeli spyware company on an official blacklist. But by then, other companies were already developing similar spyware. And then last year, October 2024, the Biden administration suspended and started reviewing a small $2 million contract with another company that had roots in Israeli intelligence, a small $2 million contract with ICE for a company called Paragon. In March 2025, this spring, reporting from Italy showed that spyware made by Paragon was turning up on the phones of immigration activists and at least one journalist and a friend of Pope Francis. Again, the company's called Paragon. The Biden administration last year stopped that company's contract with ICE. And that made a lot of sense when they did that in 2024. It made sense to stop that contract in 2024. It might make sense in 2025 for the U.S. government to still not have contracts with firms like that, right? I mean, under American principles, like the right to privacy and free speech and peaceful protest and the Fourth Amendment prohibitions against unreasonable search and seizure, no-click spyware that can surveil everything about you without you knowing, it doesn't make that much sense for our government to have that kind of power. We don't want that stuff turning up on the phones of people in our country, right? Well, I said this was a heads-up kind of segment. Here's the headline that gives us all the heads up on this. Quote, ICE reactivated its $2 million contract with Israeli spyware firm Paragon. This reporting from tech journalist Jack Polson was soon confirmed by Wired, and then it was confirmed by the Washington Post. And it does appear that the Trump administration has decided to reactivate the contract with that spyware company. The Washington Post reports that it's not clear why the contract has been reactivated or what exactly happens next or what ICE is going to do with this type of technology. The Post was unable to get comment from the company in question. But this company makes total surveillance technology of a type that has been linked to some of the scariest human rights abuses in the developed world. And of course, the news that Trump wants ICE to have it comes just as the Supreme Court has given the go-ahead for the Trump administration to restart roving immigration patrols in Los Angeles, in which ICE admits they're going after people on the basis of their ethnicity. It comes just as the Trump administration announces a new immigration blitz in the great city of Chicago. I mean, yeah, with what Trump is having ICE do and the possibility of ICE having access to this kind of technology, what could possibly go wrong, right? Set yourself a news alert on this company, Paragon. On this one, you are definitely going to want to watch this space.
Donald Trump just launched a secret ICE operation in Chicago, snatching people off the streets, targeting immigrants, and even bringing the foreign spyware to spy on Americans. This isn't about safety. It's about control, and it looks more like a dictatorship than a democracy. Trump's so-called Operation Midway Blitz claims to target the worst of the worst. But who is being arrested? A flower vendor? People waiting at a bus stop? Hard-working neighbors who have lived in Chicago for decades? And while the White House hides behind slogan about public safety, local leaders say the real goal is fear. Illinois Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton warns this isn't about protecting communities. It's about power. Trump creates chaos, then swoop in with troops, conditioning Americans to accept the military on our own streets. And here's the chilling part. It's now confirmed that Trump's administration reactivated a $2 million contract with Paragon, an Israeli spyware company capable of turning your phone into a 24/7 surveillance device. Activists, journalists, even people close to the Pope have already been tracked with this technology. Pair with that, with the Supreme Court giving Trump the green light for roving ICE raids, openly targeting people based on ethnicity. And you see the terrifying picture. This isn't immigration policy. This is authoritarian control. And Trump is laying the groundwork for it city by city. Let's be clear, this is bigger than politics. When the president uses surveillance troops and fear against his own people, that's not leadership. It's a dangerous betrayal of America. So what do you think? Is this the line? Trump should never be crossed. Or is this just the beginning of something even darker? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit like if you believe America needs to wake up. And don't forget to subscribe because we are exposing the truth they don't want you to hear.